It's a rapid showdown at the Tata Steel India, as Indian Grandmaster Narayanan S L takes on the one and only Magnus Carlsen. Let's dive in. We open with the classic Ruy Lopez. Both players are on solid ground, developing their pieces logically and fighting for control of the center, a standard, principled start. The early middle game unfolds. Both kings are castled to safety, and the major pieces begin to find their posts. It's a quiet but tense build-up from both sides. The structure becomes more defined. Magnus expands on the queen side, and Narayanan responds by locking the center with a pawn push to d5, setting the strategic stage for the battle ahead. The maneuvering begins in earnest. Carlsen signals his attacking intentions on the king's side, fianchettoing his bishop, while White skillfully reroutes his knights to prepare a defense. Tension mounts across the board. White challenges on the queen's side, opening the AA file. The queens are repositioned, and both players are coiled, ready to spring into action. And here, White makes a slight inaccuracy. Pushing the b-pawn is a queenside plan, but the real potential lay on the other side of the board. The stronger idea was pawn to h4, starting a kingside attack. After knight to d8, the pawn pushes to h5, and following the exchange of rooks on a1, White would have a promising position. But in the game, Narayanan plays pawn to b4, handing the initiative over to black, and Carlsen immediately pounces. He strikes in the center with his c-pawn, reroutes his knight, and seizes control of the queenside, just as the engine suggested. Bishop to e3, what a move from Narayanan. This is a brilliant exchange sacrifice, giving up the rook on a1 to disrupt black's coordination and generate powerful kingside counterplay. Carlsen accepts the challenge, and the rook on a1 is captured. And the recapture, rook takes on a1. A fantastic move, and the only one that keeps White in the fight. It contains a venomous trap. If black isn't careful, his queen can get snared. Magnus carefully sidesteps the trap, bringing his rook back to a8. The rook soon becomes a nuisance on a3, as White prepares to break things open in the center with a pawn push to f4. But pawn takes on e5 is an inaccuracy. This capture releases all the central tension and allows black to consolidate, soon emerging up a clean pawn. Black recaptures with the pawn on e5, cementing a clear advantage, and now a passive knight move that makes a tough situation even worse. This allows black's rook to become an absolute monster. The much more active try was bishop to c5. After bishop to d8 and queen to e3, knight to e8, and pawn to h3, White would still be fighting. Instead, in the game, the knight retreats to b1, and the floodgates are about to open, and there it is. The rook crashes down to a2, putting immense pressure on White's entire position. Pawn to h3. Another slip under pressure. This move doesn't solve the core problems and simply gives black more targets. A pawn break with f5 would have been crushing. But Magnus misses it. Knight to e8 is a quiet move, but pushing the pawn to f5 was the way to break open the position and create decisive threats. After that flurry of errors, we enter a complex maneuvering phase. Both players are probing, trying to improve their pieces and find a clear path forward in this tricky position. White shuffles his pieces, trying to put up a solid defense, but black is patiently improving his position, move by move. Bishop to h6, a second brilliant move from Magnus Carlsen. He sacrifices his bishop simply to eliminate a key defender and expose the white king, a stunning positional concept. White has no choice but to accept the sacrifice, and the bishop on h6 is taken. Black's knight recaptures on h6, landing on a terrifying attacking square, eyeing the weak pawns around the king. White repositions a knight to defend, while black tucks the king away to g7, preparing for the final wave of the attack. White brings a knight to f1, but this is an inaccuracy because it's the wrong knight. This allows black's other knight to join the party. The correct idea was bringing the other knight to f1. After rook to a3, knight to b1, rook to a1, and queen to e2, White's defensive task is much easier. But in the game, the knight from d2 moves to f1, and now the attack intensifies. Carlsen is a python, slowly tightening his grip. The knight and rook coordinate beautifully, while White's queen can only shuffle back and forth helplessly. Queen to f3, and this repetition is a mistake. White misses a golden opportunity for active counterplay that could have changed everything. The engine finds the incredible knight to h5 check. After pawn takes the knight, knight to g3, pawn to f5, and another knight check on h5, White creates chaos. But back in the game, the queen simply moves to f3, and the chance is gone. Magnus continues to improve his position, repositioning his knight and queen, patiently setting the stage for the final decisive blow. And this is the decisive error. Knight to e3 looks active, but it walks straight into a devastating tactic. The punishment is knight to g5. After queen to g3, knight to d6, rook to f1, the knight takes the pawn on e4, and black is simply winning. But in the game, Narayanan plays knight to e3, and the position collapses. And here comes the tactic. The knights swarm in, the queen moves to the g-file, and white's defenses are completely overwhelmed. Knight to f4 is the final blunder of the game. It's a desperate attempt to defend, but it overlooks a crushing blow. The killer move is rook takes the pawn on c3. After a knight check on e6, a bishop takes. Rook takes pawn on f6, the queen takes the knight on e3, and black wins a full rook. Back in the real game, white plays knight to f4, allowing the game-ending shot. And there it is. Rook takes the pawn on c3. A thunderous blow that shatters white's position and forces immediate resignation. And after that move, Narayanan resigned. Black wins. The position is completely hopeless, with unstoppable threats everywhere. Here's just one sample of the kind of trouble white was in. A knight check could come to h5. After the pawn takes, the rook swings to e2. Pawn to h6 is forced, and after pawn to h4, the attack is overwhelming.